that jaw joint. Right? So in the mammal, what you have is you have the dentary bone, just one large, the two dentary bones fused together. So, needless to say that these two bones that I pulled out of this box don't belong to the same cat because they're both on the left side. I can't even put them together. I just realized that just now when I was holding it. All right, and you can actually see how this one was part of a test question, all right, way back a while ago, because a lot of these structures that we ask, we don't actually ask you guys on there anymore. Okay. So one of the things here that you want to take a look at. This is one of the dentary bones, right? So there's two dentary bones that actually make up the jaw joint, and the entire structure, these two dentary bones together, form what's called the mandible. And one of the things that you'll notice when we get to mammals is that they have a different type of dentition. So when we look at the teeth, there are 4 different types of teeth. Right? So that's referred to as heterodont dentition. If we look at certain species of snakes, if we look at lizards and so forth, they have what we call homodont dentition, where they're all the same type of teeth. The exception would be like the front fang snakes, where you have the modification in those 2 long fangs that I showed you guys earlier. Okay. But for the most part, if you look at all their teeth, they're all the same size, similar size and shape. Okay? That's referred to as homodont. But when we look at when we take a look at a mammal skull, you'll see differences. Right? If you're handling the human bones, we actually do have real human bones, so please be careful with them because they are falling apart. Okay. So when you take a look at the teeth-wise, all right, you have the teeth right in front. These are called the incisors. Right? These function in cutting. Right? So when you're eating carrots, you put it right in front and you kind of cut it. The canine, which is more exaggerated, say on this cat right there. You can see the canine right there on the cat. Right? That's there used for tearing. And then we have premolars and molars back here. The premolars and molars are typically used for grinding. So if we take a look at the beaver skull, right, you can see the incisors in front. They're missing canines, right? And then you have the premolars and the molars right back here, again used for grinding. Okay? So this gap right here, because they're missing the canine, this gap right here is called a diastema. Okay? It's a diastema. They're actually missing a tooth right there. Okay? So if we look at the cat, we have the incisors. Here's the canine. Okay? Here's the premolar. These are molars right back here. Okay? So if we look at the lower jaw, right, on the mandible, you can see the incisors, canine, right, premolars, and here's a molar. Okay? So the arrow is actually, where it says E, is actually pointing to a premolar. Now, so, this one actually does fit for this cat. Now, there's a lot of modifications to the teeth type depending upon the mammal in question, based upon their diet and so forth. So if you look at the beaver, right, you can see how the incisors are quite large, right, and so they're basically chewing, right, gnawing that stuff, and then they're going to grind that stuff down. You don't need a canine because you don't need to tear anything. Right? Now, the important thing with the rodents, okay, because the beaver is one of the large rodents, not the largest rodent. The largest rodent is found is the capybara. Okay? This particular incisor, these incisors are constantly growing, so they really need to gnaw at stuff. If they don't, what can potentially happen is this incisor right here can start to grow and curl back around. And if it grows long enough, it can literally start to penetrate into the skull, and they will puncture their brain. Right? They can pit themselves. So they're constantly gnawing. So that's why they're always nibbling on stuff, right? They basically wear away the teeth, keep them nicely worn down, right? And then they're grinding on there. Okay? And you can actually tell different species of rodents apart based upon what their molars look like and what their teeth look like, based upon the enamel and so forth. What you're actually seeing. Okay. So in this gap right here, because this rodent's missing the canine, it's called a diastema. So, but with the cat, or with the carnivores, what you're looking at here with these guys is the first upper molar and the fourth lower premolar. Okay, so this premolar and this molar, they form a specific teeth called the carnasials. Carnasials are used for cutting or shearing flesh. So next time you watch, lions at the kill, all right? All right. So when you're watching that, Nature or Nova documentary, or Animal Planet is a terrible channel to watch nowadays, in my opinion. Right? It's not very good on there anymore. All right. But you'll watch the cat; they'll turn their head to the side, and they basically will start kind of cutting. They use these carnasials, this upper molar and this lower premolar, to basically shear the flesh off. So if you have a cat or a dog and you want to look at the carnasials, lift up their gums. Just make sure you don't get your finger caught back there, right? Because most likely they'll take it off, right? Depending on how hard they bite down on it. Okay, this doesn't belong to this cat because we got a problem here with our bite. Right. Wait, where's my dentist? Stephanie, you're going to be a dentist, correct? Right. Can you fix this bite? No, that's orthodontics. That's orthodontics. All right, everybody feel pretty comfortable with that? All right, so that's the two dentary bones make up the lower jaw, and the lower jaw is called the mandible, right? So like in us, the mandible, the dentary bones, we don't even call them dentary bones anymore, right? Right. This is just a mandible. Right? You can see how it actually articulates right here. So I'm going to show you guys the bones here, and I'll point them out onto the cat and so forth. All right? So we're not going to look at all the bones on the skull. All right? And so you got the human skull. We got a lot of and I'm going to show you guys some of these modifications of which. All right. So you got the dentary, which in us forms the mandible. All right. What's this bone right here? Maxilla. All right. These are your two nasals. Here is this is still part of your maxilla. All right. Here is your zygomatic. All right. This bone over here is your temporal bone. Okay. And so notice the temporal bone and the zygomatic together, they form the zygomatic arch. So here is the zygomatic arch right here. So this skull condition that you're looking at is a synapsid skull condition. Why? Because there's only a single temporal opening right here. Right? Here's where your masseter muscles come down through it, right, to attach to your mandible. All right. So here is you can see the suture line right here. Here's your temporal bone. Okay, forms a major portion of your zygomatic arch. Here is the zygomatic. All right. And then you can see the suture line right here, and then that forms the anterior portion of the zygomatic arch. Now keep in mind that for the four-legged critter, this bone right here will still be called the jugal. So oftentimes if you look at label diagrams, you'll see them go back and forth between the two. Okay? All right, so jugal or zygomatic. So for us, if you take anatomy, you learn zygomatic. Okay? So here is your frontal. Okay? Here are your two parietals. You can see the occipital right here. All right. There's your occipital. There's the foramen magnum right there. All right. So these are just some of the features that you guys need to take a look at on this particular skull. I mean, you don't need to worry about taking the skull cap off. Okay, let's find the sphenoid. Okay, and let's find the ethmoid bone and so forth, the nasal conchas and so forth. Okay, so just frontal, parietal, occipital, Okay. Here's the temporal bone. Okay. Here's the zygomatic. Together they form the zygomatic arch. Here's your maxilla. Okay. Here are your nasals. Okay. Here is the dentary bone that's fused to form the actual mandible itself. Okay. So that's the bones that you guys want to take a look at for that. Okay. But when we take a look at the cat, you'll see the same things. Right. So here are the nasals. Here's the maxilla. Right. Here's the frontal. Here are the two parietals. Here's the occipital. Okay. Here is the temporal bone. Here is the jugal. And then here is the zygomatic arch. You can see the suture line right between the jugal and the zygomatic portion of this temporal bone. So here's the temporal bone. So here's the, the scientific term for this is the external auditory meatus, right, or the ear hole, right? And this is the tympanic bulla. The tympanic bulla in this guy, notice how it's much larger. When we come over here, all right, do you see a tympanic bulla in us? All right, is there any amplification or any modification to that? So here's our external auditory meatus, right? There is no tympanic bulla on there. So notice that your hearing, what's our hearing like? Crappy, right? We got crappy hearing. Why can other animals hear you better? Right? They have this tympanic bulla that helps to amplify that sound. Right? So notice that the jaw joint now is made up of mandible and the temporal portion of the bone. The quadrate is no longer here. Where did the quadrate go? Quadrate went into the middle ear cavity. Okay? There's your incus. The articular is not here anymore. That also went to the inner ear. That becomes the malleus. So those two bones, in addition to the columella, which is the stapes, okay? So the incus, the malleus, and the stapes, those are the three bones that form the mammalian inner ear. Whereas in the reptile, I showed you guys that bone in the snapping turtle, right? That was called the columella. Well, where did the columella come from? All right, you guys remember the hyomandibular? Right? What's the function of the hyomandibular? Huh? Supporting what? Supporting the mandibular arch. Okay, so that bone, when we get into the reptiles, right? That's the columella. Well, in us that becomes the stapes, right? So it's a different name for it. But then we gain additional two other bones: the quadrate, right? The incus, and then the articular, which is the stapes. So that jaw joint now becomes part of the three bones of the middle ear cavity for mammals. Right? So, but that's the tympanic bulla right there. Okay? So again, this is the, you may not be able to see the suture line as well up there. Okay? But this is the temporal bone. Here's the zygomatic. Here's the maxilla. Here are the nasals. Frontal, parietal, occipital. Okay, and then here you got Brian the mandible right there for you. Okay. So then when we take a look at some of these other guys, all right, nasal. So when you take, for example, like a beaver skull, right? Here's the nasals, right? Here is the maxilla, right? Here is the jugal. So the maxilla. Here's the jugal. Here's the temporal. Right, you got the zygomatic arch right there. Here you got the dentary bone forming half of the mandible. Right. You have the frontal. You got the two parietals. Here's your occipital, right back over here. All right. All right. Everybody feel pretty comfortable? And then here's the external auditory meatus right here. Right. Right. Same thing on the opposite side. Right over there. But depending upon the organism in question, right, one of the things that you'll see is you'll see various modifications, especially to the teeth. All right. So if you take a look at the walrus right here, and be careful, the walrus is heavier than you kind of expect. Right. So what are we looking at? Right? So you can see a lot of the fusion in the actual skull itself. Okay? On the lap rack, I'll put things on there for you guys, where you can actually kind of make things out. If you take a look at sea lion, right? One of the things that you'll see is you can see how some of these are numbered, right? You got nasals, you have the maxilla, right? Here is the zygomatic, right? Here's your pupil, here's your parietal, right up here. Here is your temporal bone, right? And then you can actually see the two frontals. So when you take a look at the teeth on these guys, you can see incisors, the canines, and the premolars and the molars. We lost most of the premolars and molars, but notice how they're shaped, right? They're more cone-like, and this is basically so that they can grab onto, their fish that are pretty darn slippery on that. So one of the things here that you're looking at is you can identify these various bones on there. Okay? One of the things we'll talk about when we get to lecture and we start talking about mammals is the secondary palate. How by having the secondary palate, one of the things that this allows you to do is cram your mouth full of food, and you can still breathe at the same time. That's the biggest thing right there. All right? We have the dolphin skulls, and be careful with the dolphin skull when you guys take a look at the dolphin skull. Right? Now, when you take a look at these guys, okay, one of the things here that you'll see with this is that the nasal bones are right up here now. Right? So the nasals are up at the top of the head, not right here. Okay? So you got the maxilla, but these are the premaxillas right here. And here's the premaxilla, here's the maxilla. Right? Here are the nasals. Okay? These are the nasals. All right? And then your frontal is basically this bone that's right behind there. And then you have your, you kind of see a portion of this one's a little bit harder, right? So here is a portion of the temporal bone. Here's your occipital area right back here, right? And then your parietals are on the very top, but the frontal is this bone that's right over here, right? And then here is the zygomatic right here, and then there's your temporal, right? So you have some modifications, but the nasals are right here on this guy, okay? Right on top of the head. This way, by putting it on the top of the head, right, makes them a lot more efficient. They only have to bring the top portion of the head out. They don't have to bring the whole rostrum out. Right? You can't swim as fast if you have to bring the whole tip of it out. Right? And then here's where there's a whole series of fossils that have been discovered, and a lot of them were pulled out of Pakistan. So Gingrich out at University of Michigan pulled some fossils out of Pakistan, where you see the transition where the nasals, the nostrils, instead of being at the tip, right, are now moved further back. Right? And this allows for more efficient means of locomotion. So, alright, so you can see the canines on these guys have really been modified, right? On this warthog, alright? So the greatest degree of fusion that you typically see is in the swine, right? In the pigs and hogs and so forth. This group right here, a lot of fusion in their actual bones, so it makes it a lot more challenging to kind of differentiate between these various structures on there, right? And so the males use this for what?
Flight.
Huh? All right. So the big thing here is they use it to, as a defense mechanism, right? But they also use it to fight other males for female. And you can see on the lower jaw, right? You can see the canine as they're sticking out. All right.
What animal is this?
This is a warthog.
Warthog.
And then we have all right. So the approximate polar bear size skull. Right. Again, you can see the incisors, the canines, premolars, and the actual molars back here. This guy. Right. You can always tell a male from a female with a lot of these animals because when you look at the actual head, like on the seal line right here, you'll see that there is no crest on there, but a male, because for larger muscle attachment, they'll have the sagittal crest that's on the male, right? Okay. Whereas the female doesn't have that. Okay. Doesn't have that on there. Right. So when we take a look at the skeletal structure, all right, we'll start with the human over here, and for those of you guys that have already had anatomy, right, you basically have a leg up on everybody else because you've already learned some. So, yeah, I'll pull some out of the bone box over there as well. So you have your sternum. All right. Here's your manubrium portion of the sternum. Coming down here, the xiphoid process. All right. So you got your ribs. All right. How many pairs of ribs do we have? 12. 12. Okay. All right. And when you take a look at the ribs, some of these are attached onto the sternum. All right. Some of these are attached via cartilage, and then you got a pair that's actually a little free-floating, or what are referred to as false ribs, on there. So we got ribs. All right. The other thing that we're going to take a look at with this guy is these are the clavicles. All right. And then on the back side, you got the scapula. Here's the humerus. Okay. Here's the radius right here, and the ulna. All right, the ulna forms your elbow. All right, so here's the ulna, here's the radius, here's the humerus. I'm not going to make you learn all of the wrist bones, okay? But the wrist bones are the carpals. The back of your hand are the metacarpals. Okay. And then we come down, and then we have your ilium. Here is your ischium, right back here, and then you have your pubis right in front. Right, here's the pubis. So ilium, ischium, pubis, and where they all meet is right here in the acetabulum. Okay, this little socket right here. You got your femur. You have the patella. This is the tibia, and laterally you have the fibula. And again, I'm not going to make you learn all of the tarsal bones, okay, down here in the foot. And so what you have are these bones right here are the tarsals. Okay. Your instep of your foot are the metatarsals, and then distally you have the phalanges here, and also the phalanges here on your fingers. All right. So remember, carpals are in the wrist. That's your wrist bones. All right. Carpal tunnel syndrome. That's an easy way to remember it. And then your metacarpals. Right. This is what mom typically smacked you in the back of the head with. Okay. All right. All right. Know exactly. Some of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. All right. And then these are your tarsals. All right. And the instep of your foot are the metatarsals. Okay. So everybody feel pretty comfortable with this guy?
So in relation to the acromion and the coracoid, what are clavicle in relation to the coracoid?
Oh, the two processes. Right. So like on the bird and all those other guys, the acromion and the coracoid are right here. They're all fused together into the various processes on the clavicle itself. Okay. All right. All right, let's see what else we want to take a look at. So the skull we did, all right? So how many cervical vertebrae do we have? 7. Right? How many thoracic vertebrae do we have? 12. Right? So how many pairs of ribs do we have? 12, because that's what the ribs are attached to. Right? And then we have how many lumbar? 5. Good way to remember, right? What time do you eat breakfast? 7 o'clock in the morning. You eat lunch around noon, right? There's 12, and then dinner around 5. That's the early bird special with the grandparents, right? Because most of you guys don't eat dinner at 5 o'clock, right? Right? But you do with your grandparents for the early bird special because your grandparents go to bed at 8 o'clock, right? But your grandparents are also up at 5 a.m. in the morning, right? So, and then you have the sacral vertebra. And be careful, this is going to go through. Okay? You have the sacrum, right? About 5 vertebrae fused, and then you have your coccyx right here, right? So there's a little tail, about 3 vertebrae that are fused right there. Right? And keep in mind that our coccyx is not post-anal. Okay? You can't. Hopefully, you're not able to locomote with that. Right? All right. So that's that skeleton right there. But when you take a look at some of these other skeletal structures, like on the cat, you should be able to find the same things on there. So you can see here's the scapula. Here is a humerus. Here is the radius. Right here, this is the ulna. The ulna, right, it's got this little U bend to it, right, where it actually articulates with the humerus, so it slides right in here. Okay, so this everybody learns when you're in anatomy or in a vertebrate class, right? Right, U for ulna. Okay, and the radius, what you're looking for is this little flattened portion. Let me pull it. Alright, so here you can see this. Now this box right here that's out of wood is real bone. So please be careful with the real bone, okay? Because you don't get real bone skeletons typically anymore. Okay? So here is the scapula. Right? Here's the clavicle on there. Here's the patella, right? So now the one thing that not making you learn is to distinguish between right versus left. Okay. But for those of you guys that had anatomy, how do you tell right and left from the patella? How do you know if this is a right patella? How do I know if this is a right patella or if this is a left patella? How do I know if this is a right or left patella? Okay, I look at what leg it's on. Unfortunately, there's no leg attached to this one. Right? You guys remember learning that in anatomy? Really? You guys, so like when you take anatomy here, do you have to learn right and left? You do, right? Yeah. So like, yeah, like the humerus, right? You have a humerus just sitting right there. Is this a right humerus or is this a left humerus, right? So that you got to do. So how do you tell that? You get to do that? Huh? The way that it lays, actually, right? So notice which way it falls. This one's falling to the. So if I rotate this way, it falls to that left side. So, and the way that you're looking at it is how you're looking at it on the person, right? Where the point's down, and this is the top portion, okay? The superior and the inferior. So this is the left side right here. Okay, so that's how you tell it falls to the outside.